Pro Group Management. Workers' comp that works for you.
Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers. On the broadcast today, Aaron West. He's the CEO of the Nevada Builders Alliance, here for the whole show on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
Liberal D.C. spending is making life in Nevada painfully expensive.
It's a killer, it really is. Groceries, everything.
I have no choice. I gotta get gas one way or another.
Not only gas prices, everything is going up.
Senator Catherine Cortez Masto joined fellow D.C. liberals voting for trillions in government spending, causing inflation and higher costs, making it harder for Nevadans to get by. Tell Senator Cortez Masto to stop voting for reckless spending and start fighting inflation.
Retail's impact on Nevada's economy? Enormous. 8,600 businesses, large and small, employing 145,000 workers. And last fiscal year, retail paid tax on nearly $60 billion in sales. We're the Retail Association of Nevada. We support retail, we help it grow, and we mean business.
RANNV.org. With Nevada's only transplant center and verified burn center, the science is here. With award-winning cardiologist and the state's only dedicated heart failure clinic, the talent is here. With Nevada's most advanced robotic surgery, the technology is here. And with the Silver State's only designated pediatric trauma center, hope is here. All because we are here. UMC.
The Nevada Builders Alliance has been protecting the interests of the construction industry for over 50 years. Our programs save members thousands of dollars every year and allow them to provide much-needed benefits to their employees. Our industry also allows Nevada to grow. If you're thinking about a career in the construction industry, reach out. And if you haven't thought of a career in construction, what are you waiting for? We are the Nevada Builders Alliance.
This is Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad, a no-holds-barred political forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we're always pleased to welcome back to the program Aaron West. He's the CEO of the Nevada Builders Alliance. Pleasure to have you back on the program, sir.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start out with some good news at both ends of the state. Starting out with the announcement yesterday, it was talked about here by Teresa Di Loretto last August, but the company made the official announcement that they're going to be developing 73 acres in South Reno. For folks that don't understand how big of a piece of land that is, City Center sits on about 66 acres.
Right.
So tell us your thoughts on that and what that means for the construction industry.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. We have a lot of conversations when we're developing residential housing, and folks go, well, we don't want the housing, we want the services, right? We want access to retail, we want professional office, we want food options. And we always say the rooftops drive that. And so what you're seeing is that logical progression. And so downtown Damani is going to be wonderful because we now have the rooftops in place to support everything that they want to do there. In my understanding, I mean, we're talking medical office, retail, restaurants, even some multifamily. So it's exciting.
I know that Perry Di Loretto was excited because their firework display actually exceeded all the other firework displays in Northern Nevada.
Right.
1,000 fireworks, I'm told.
It was quite the show.
Well, the other thing that I find very interesting is, and I've known Perry a long time, is especially with what happened during the Great Recession, Perry is the most conservative of the builders. He was the last one to jump back into building homes after the Great Recession. And even as he was doing that, I think he had doubts about whether it was really going to be a better economy. So for him to do this now, what kind of faith does that put into the marketplace?
Yeah, I think it's important, right, to really give credit to our local developers and builders because they're really the ones that drive our communities and support so many different charitable endeavors and folks. And so I think it's easy for the public builders when they're playing with monopoly money to bounce in and out of markets at a whim. But for the local developers and builders to really have that confidence to move forward, I think it says a lot. And again, it's that logical progression. That's the last big piece down there, you know. And unless something major happens and we start pushing further, but we're at the edges of the bowl, right? So that's a big win.
My understanding is from Teresa that there's an additional 50 acres, because when she was talking on the program last year, she was talking about around 127 acres. Right. So, I mean, I think there's still more land in that development area.
Yeah, Roger Norman still has a good chunk in there, and then also, you know, I mean, the Damani family is still down in that area, and you know, at some point they're probably going to decide that it's getting a little too crowded for them, and that provides more opportunity.
I was very sad to see that Roger Norman was selling his house. And only because he has been such an incredible figure for Northern Nevada. Yeah. When you look at the recovery from COVID, for example, the unemployment rate in Northern Nevada, that is all due to what he did first here where we are in South Meadows, right. And then into the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center. Yep. And it was funny, I was talking to Bruce Breslow on the program, who's involved in the developments out in Hazen between Fernley and Fallon. Right. And I was asking, you know, with their development, are they going to put in the infrastructure first? And he said, no, not everybody has Roger Norman's money.
There you go.
And that really was an incredible display of confidence to take such a huge tract of land and put all the infrastructure in before anybody came. Right. That just isn't done.
No, well, I think it's important to remember that private development really is the one that leads the way and pays the bills. Roger just did it on a whole nother scale, right? You know, any residential development in our community, obviously you start with a certain amount of infrastructure and you expand on it. So the key there is developers are always and builders are always paying their way. They're the ones that are really putting the money out and making it happen, and Roger just did it on such a scale that we hadn't really seen before. And of course, you know, he's not done. I'm excited to see what happens with his property in Fernley and how that progresses.
Yeah, another thing that came out of the interview with Bruce Breslow was that Toll Brothers is coming into the Fallon area to develop housing. What does that signal to you? Well,
I think, you know, we've been talking for a long time about land and land constraints and land issues within Washoe Valley or within Greater Washoe County and especially in the metro. And as you know, we keep talking about it's that migration, that drive to qualify. I will say, you know, during the last run up in 05, we saw a lot of folks moving into Fernley, but there really wasn't any job base there. So they were purely just commuters, right? Now, with all the activity that's out at the Victory Logistics Center, that's absolutely amazing and going to be driving thousands of jobs to where those folks can now stay there. Fallon, you know, has really kind of had an independent nature for years. You might know I graduated high school there.
Right.
So between the base and the ag and, you know, and the fact that it's really, it's the largest of the rurals, right? And so it's really very self-supportive. I think the fact that you have two public builders now going into a market like Fallon tells you that they're looking for an easier path, right? We've been dealing with so much inflationary pressure on labor and materials and everything else. You only have certain constraints, and laws and land are two of the big ones. So I think that shows you that they're willing to sacrifice some in order to go and seek a less regulatory environment and cheaper land prices.
Okay, when you say sacrifice, what do you mean?
Well, I think obviously there's higher margins in the Reno Sparks
gotcha.
metro, right? But at the end of the day, you can only beat your head against the wall so many times, right? And then you start looking for an easier path.
Now, let's turn our attention to Southern Nevada, and you know, yet another stadium, a 20,000 stadium, with an accompanying major hotel casino project, right. and this is with backing of big money. Right. So what does this say now about the construction industry in Southern Nevada?
Well, as a sports fan, right, I'm obviously very excited. You know, I love the fact that we have Allegiant Stadium and we've got the Golden Knights, and so I think Vegas, despite all the naysayers, has really shown, you know, that we are that world-class destination for anything, and now it turns out sports too. What I tend to focus more on, look at, you know, Vegas could have started a few years ago looking at what Northern Nevada was doing in terms of diversification of their economy. And it's taken a while, but we're really finally starting to see that kick in. You know, California's policies against distribution centers and trucking and so forth is really driving an amazing amount of growth in Southern Nevada as it relates to warehousing and just industrial space. You know, tens of millions of square feet every year now are being built down there. And that's a story that really nobody's talking about.
Well, you are right here.
So as impressive as some of those big facilities and those big opportunities are, the fact that we're seeing just this organic growth of industry and job creation outside of that, that gaming framework, I think is huge for Nevada.
Partolls is, we talked about this on the show, is one of our sponsors, developing 140 acres down there at Jean, and the key to that, the success, I think, of that property is going to be the fact that truck drivers can go to there, drop off their loads, and get back to LA in one day. Whereas if they continue on into Henderson and Las Vegas, then they have to spend the night. Your thoughts on how that's going to affect things?
Yeah, no, I think I've been in this game for 20 years, and Ivanpah and Gene, it's always been kind of on the table. It's always been one of those, hey, at some point it's going to make sense. And so I obviously applaud Parr. He's got more vision than most. And so if there's somebody that can pull it off, it's definitely him. But to your point, I mean, that's why you're seeing so much industrial development in Henderson. Now, don't get me wrong, you're still seeing a ton of it in North Las Vegas and up around the Speedway, and now we're already talking about new activity out in Apex. So that's great, but I think Panatonia was one of the first ones to really jump on the idea of, hey, let's catch them right as they come into town instead of making them drive all the way through town.
You brought up Ivanpah, which has been one of my favorite topics now for I think about 30 years. It seems like it's almost a secret in the media. Is that, do you think, because people are concerned that too much conversation about it is going to get no growth attitudes going? Yeah,
I think we've every time we start talking about a lands bill and start talking about is there a higher and better use for federal lands in Southern Nevada? Obviously, it brings out the environmentalists, and so and unfortunately, if you can step back and take a bigger picture view of it, I think it would make so much more sense, right? To they've talked forever about really upgrading that and turning that into the cargo and commercial airport for the region, which would certainly take a lot of a lot of stress off of that that big old Harry Reid International Airport that's right there in downtown. So it's like so many things right now, if we could step back and try and find some balance between, doing what's right for the environment and trying not to overburden our population, and and seeking real solutions that make sense in the future.
Well, I mean, I think that all these projects now, I mean, I don't think anybody's going into them, especially on these major projects, thinking, oh well, we're just going to destroy the environment. I mean, you look at what's going on up at Thacker Pass. I mean, every possible environmental goal is trying to be accomplished, right. Because they know otherwise they're going to end up litigating in courts for the rest of their lives.
Yeah. The amount of regulatory oversight at this point, it unfortunately, when we hear about these horror stories, they're usually going back to the 30s and 40s, right? The amount of regulatory oversight in this day and age, just the number of sheer agencies involved in trying to do any sort of major project, it's impossible to get away with the rape and pillage mentality of a bygone era.
Marilyn Kirkpatrick on this show, the chairwoman of the Clark County Commission, said that this Ivanpah would be open by the time she was termed out, which at the time was 10 years. That's probably 9 years now. Do you think that's realistic?
I guess it'll be interesting to see what happens right now. We're just we're in such a volatile time, right? And I think the growth is definitely here. We're trying to keep up with it, and at the same time, we're running into issues where in the last year interest rates have doubled. That's definitely causing an impact on housing affordability and accessibility. Fuel rates have doubled. And so I think it really comes down to, as a state, are we going to go so aggressive on this environmentalist agenda that we're going to destroy our economy, or are we going to take a step back and realize the real opportunity and potential here and try and take advantage of it?
Do you not get the sense, because I do, that in the political world, and I'm talking about the world that you live in, which is not on the extremes, but in the negotiating from one side to the other to get things done, that there is a movement towards the middle right now?
I think the fact that 30% of, a third of the electorate in Nevada is now independent should tell you that that's the direction we should go. But I will also say that our two-party system and our primary system in the state of Nevada is fundamentally broken. And that's not allowing us to get to that goal. I honestly believe that if you took the majority of the electorate within the state right now, that they would all say that that's where they want to get. But unfortunately, with our primary system the way it is, we just can't get there. So that's why we're a big advocate of the open primary ballot initiative.
Okay, so that just came out of the Supreme Court last week, the ranked voting. Are organizations like yours going to help fund the campaign to get that passed?
I think you're going to see a lot of business organizations jump into that. It just makes sense. If we want to, try and find some middle ground to actually come up with solutions that are going to move the state forward, we need something like this.
All right, let's take a break. We'll be right back with Aaron West. A lot more to talk about after this timeout.
Liberal D.C. spending is making life in Nevada painfully expensive.
It's a killer. It really is. Groceries, everything.
I have no choice. I gotta get gas one way or another.
Not only gas prices, everything is going up.
Senator Catherine Cortez Masto joined fellow D.C. liberals voting for trillions in government spending, causing inflation and higher costs, making it harder for Nevadans to get by. Tell Senator Cortez Masto to stop voting for reckless spending and start fighting inflation.
Ahern Rentals began as Signal Gas Station on Las Vegas Boulevard. Founder John Ahern grew the business by offering rentals. His son Don built on John's legacy, growing Ahern Rentals into the largest independently owned American rental company, with 89 locations in 30 states. Don also brought his experience and vision to equipment manufacturing with Extreme Manufacturing and Snorkel. Today, Ahern Rentals continues to bring its family values to a new generation. Learn more at ahern.com.
As you know, Reno is booming. Toll's development company is helping it grow with insightful design and development, building community with every project, adding beauty, adding excitement, emphasizing our shared humanity. Reno is becoming bigger. Toll's development is helping it become better, more livable, more enjoyable. To learn more, go to tollsdevelopment.com. tollsdevelopment.com. I'm here at the Carson Valley Inn in Minden with Joey Whitaker. Entertainment here at the Carson Valley Inn is extraordinary.
Yeah, super proud of the TJ's Corral, our outdoor venue, about 1,500 seats. We've had first-class entertainment out there. We've had Merle Haggard, we've had Chris Young, we've had Lee Brice a couple times, we've had Pat Benatar, Joan Jett, who's in the Hall of Fame. We're real proud out there, and it's just a great time. Watch CarsonValleyInn.com. and grab those tickets early. It's not a long way to get away to the Carson Valley Inn.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Aaron West. He's the CEO of the Nevada Builders Alliance. So we talked about a whole bunch of good news, and we didn't even include the Boring Company and their plans to tunnel all the way under Las Vegas, which is going to be incredible. The Resorts World link is just about to open. But let's talk about labor issues and the potential for recession. So we're in such a bizarre place here in the Silver State because we have so much construction that's going on. Fontainebleau is moving ahead. Like I mentioned earlier, we have this, potentially another massive stadium, hotel, casino complex, Station Casinos, announcing development in downtown Las Vegas in addition to Durango Station. How are we doing as far as workers go? Because I talked to somebody the other day and they were telling me they're paying their laborers $25 an hour.
Right. Thankfully, I would say that especially when it comes to larger projects, that's really where you see our union construction trades step up and activate their networks and really, kind of bring the resources necessary to the table. Where where we continue to struggle really is on the residential side, and we've talked about that for years here in Northern Nevada, where we have a finite amount of workforce, and so we see these ebbs and flows from the swing from more multifamily to more single family, and it's literally just because we can't do more of both because we only have so much to work with. So I think that's going to continue to be a struggle for us. I've said before, as an industry, we really need to do more in terms of innovation. But I think with what's going on right now with the interest rates, it's definitely going to pump the brakes a little bit. Now, when I say pump the brakes, it's funny because some folks with the numbers that have come out on retail sales the last couple months of, kind of screaming for the hills that the world's coming to an end. And when I look at the numbers, we literally dropped back to pre-pandemic level, which, if you recall, pre-pandemic level was still very hot.
Yes.
It was still, so I think we're still in good shape, and as long as we're next door to California, we're still going to continue to see businesses and folks that want to get away.
All right, let's take another break. We'll be right back with Aaron West after this.
Southwest Specialties has been making the homes and businesses of Nevada beautiful for more than 20 years. Their experienced designers and craftsmen create the walkways, backyards, water features, and a variety of outdoor cooking areas that add curb appeal and value to your investment. Call today or visit them at their website and see how they can make your outdoor spaces special. Southwest Specialties, creative, distinctive, beautiful.
Modern boutique Ahern Hotel and Events Center in Las Vegas. Host meetings and events on 2 floors. Stay in luxurious rooms and suites. Unlimited branding opportunities. Regional Italian cuisine by Chef Mark Segrisi. Flexible event spaces. Full buyout options. Visit ahernhotel.com today.
Everyone is talking about opioids, but they're not the only drugs that can be harmful if taken in large quantities or not as prescribed. You also need to be aware of side effects from anxiety drugs, muscle relaxants, sleep aids, and stimulants. Mixing prescription drugs with other drugs or alcohol can be dangerous. If you take an Ambien with a glass of wine, it may be enough to stop you from breathing. Prescribed drugs can be just as dangerous as illegal drugs. Take medications only as directed.
Hi, I'm Renee Summerhour, digital news anchor here at 7 at 7. Watch our streaming nonstop newscast immediately with your mobile phone. 7 at 7 is the new way for you to get every bit of local news you need in just 7 minutes. Breaking news, local neighborhood news, weather, and sports are just a click away. Reporters bring you all of what's happening in the Valley. From Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, YouTube, and more. Get every bit of local news you need from the RJ and LVRJ.com.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Aaron West. He's the CEO of the Nevada Builders Alliance. So, the media loves negative news because that results in clicks and scaring people and all the rest that we've been seeing, for years now. I'm not saying this is anything new, but that's the reality.
Right.
Is not in some ways the raising of interest rates and the Fed trying to slow down the economy in a way good news? In the sense that now you'll be able to build at a rate that matches the employee force. People will stop buying things, which means that you won't have to truck so much because the trucking industry is so overwhelmed at this point. Isn't this actually what we would like to be able to attain? We just don't want it to go so far that we start going backwards.
Right. I contend, and based on the conversations that I've had with folks in the economic development arena, looking at Nevada, we are uniquely positioned. I think, there's so many, there were already a lot of economic forces that were pushing companies and businesses and people literally here to live, work, and play. And I think what we're seeing in terms of inflationary pressure and interest rates and everything else, it's just going to continue to create that pain in other markets. I'm with you. I think there's a lot of markets that I don't know exactly why they're growing, but they're growing, right? And so if we can pump the brakes a little bit and get some of these other markets to cool off a little bit, I'm actually optimistic that that's going to free up resources for us. You know, we continue to struggle with silly things like garage doors and foam for the outside of houses for stucco. So I'm actually cautiously optimistic that this could be a good thing for Nevada.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I was talking to somebody the other day who's in the painting business, and they were saying that for name brand paints, they were having trouble getting them because they weren't getting all the chemicals they needed to be able to mix these paints. If you wanted non-brand name paints, which is what goes on all new housing, but it's people refurbishing that need the other way. So do you see interest rates rising and then dropping back again?
I think you're going to see a lot of pressure at the federal level to, you know, get back to that model of trying to provide everybody an opportunity to own a home. And at the end of the day, I wish, you know, that we could say that every decision that's made is, you know, really for the best interest of everybody involved, but we know that there's political implications. And so if, you know, I think if some certain folks, you know, desire re-election in the next couple of years, they're going to have to make some changes.
Are you saying there's gambling in that back room? Aaron West, CEO of the Nevada Builders Alliance. Thank you as always.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back.
Each day, the Children's Advocacy Alliance partners with leaders, legislators, and families across Nevada to improve children's health, education, economic well-being, and safety. We recognize Nevada will be no better than the state of its children. Be a part of this change. Be a supporter of the Children's Advocacy Alliance. For more information, go to caanv.org.
With Nevada's only transplant center and verified burn center, the science is here. With award-winning cardiologist and the state's only dedicated heart failure clinic, the talent is here. With Nevada's most advanced robotic surgery, the technology is here. And with the Silver State's only designated pediatric trauma center, hope is here. All because we are here. UMC.
Early in the morning or throughout the night, professional truck drivers are on the job, serving you, safely moving freight that's crucial to our economy. From the oldest industries to our newest innovators, from the exotic to the everyday. Trucks are everywhere, moving everything. Never afraid to embrace a future that makes Nevada and our nation stronger. Trucking moves America forward.
What do you count on? You count on your power every day. At NV Energy, we've always powered what's important to you, but we're not looking at the past. We're focused on the future. While our standards are high, our rates will remain low. And our commitment to renewables isn't just meeting standards, but leading the way. Because you can count on more than just your power. You can count on the company who brings it to you. That's our promise. You can count on it.
As always, you can watch Nevada Newsmakers 24 hours a day at NevadaNewsmakers.com. You can also check our archive going back to 2005 on our website, again, NevadaNewsmakers.com. We'll see you on the next show.